We said normally when you graph, your center of your graph is at 0, 0. But you'll see on these ones, there's adding and subtracting. That means my graph is going to move over to the left or right and up or down because I have adding and subtracting on the end. But what you're going to do to find where your middle of your graph should be is you're going to solve what's in the absolute value with that x. If x plus 4 equals 0, then x is going to be at negative 4 instead of at 0. So when you make your table, negative 4 is going to be in the middle. Then when I do my graph, I want to do 2 points on each side of that. So I would say, okay, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, and negative 6 are the 5 values I want to put in my table. Now I've got to do some work because now I've got to plug those numbers into my equation and solve it. So I'm going to start with 2 times the absolute value of negative 2 plus 4 minus 3. Inside the absolute value, negative 2 plus 4 is 2. The absolute value of 2 is still 2. So now I have 2 times 2, which is 4. 4 minus 3 is 1. Now I got to plug the negative 3 in there and do the same thing. 2 times the absolute value of negative 3 plus 4 minus 3. A negative 3 plus a 4 is 1. The absolute value of 1 is still 1, so I have 2 times 1 minus 3. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 minus 3, negative 1. Now I get to put the negative 4 in there. 2 times the absolute value of negative 4 plus 4 minus 3. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. The absolute value of 0 is still 0. 0 times 2, still 0. However, I have 0 minus 3 then, and 0 minus 3 would give me negative 3. Then I'm going to put my negative 5 in. 2 times the absolute value of negative 5 plus 4 minus 3. So negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. However, the negative 1's in the absolute value. The absolute value of negative 1 changes that to plain 1, right? So I have 2 times 1 minus 3. 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 minus 3 is negative 1. And then I've got to do the negative 6. 2 times the absolute value of negative 6 plus 4 minus 3. Negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2, but it's in the absolute value. So the negative 2 becomes positive 2. 2 times 2 minus 3 would be 4 minus 3, which is 1. Notice on there, the top answer and the bottom answer are the same. The second answer and the fourth answer are the same. And the other one should be in the middle. When I plot those points, negative 2, positive 1. Negative 3, negative 1. Negative 4, negative 3. Negative 5, negative 1. And negative 6, positive 1. What's going to happen is it's going to look sort of like a V. And on ALEKS, instead of just letting you click the graph button like they do with the parabola and the cubic function, they're actually going to make you draw it. So what you're going to have to do is put the ruler on the vertex and one of the endpoints and draw your line from the vertex through that endpoint. And then you're going to have to put the ruler on the vertex and the other endpoint and draw a second line, if I could draw, so it looks like a V. Be careful that you don't go beyond the vertex when you draw that. You can't go below that. It should look like a V when you're done. But when you do an absolute value equation, it's going to look like a V or an upside down V, depending on if your coefficient is negative or positive. Because I scribbled everywhere. So number 14, first thing I want to do is to figure out where the middle point of my graph should be. So if I'm going to figure out where my vertex is going to be, I'm going to take that part in the absolute value, the x minus 1, and set it equal to 0, and then solve that. If I solve that for x, I get positive 1, because I just have to move my 1 over to the other side, right? So 1 is going to be the middle number in my table. I want 2 points on each side of that. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 0, negative 1, right? 3, 2, 1, 0, negative 1. Now I got to plug my numbers in and solve. So negative 2 times the absolute value of 3 minus 1 minus 3. So 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 times the negative 2 in front will be negative 4. Negative 4 minus 3 gives me negative 7. And I have negative 2 times the absolute value of of 2. Use the right number in there. 2 minus 1 minus 3 on the end. So 2 minus 1 is 1. Absolute value of 1 stays 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. And a negative 2 minus 3 would be negative 5. Then I'm going to do negative 2 times the absolute value of 1 minus 1 minus 3. 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 times negative 2 is still 0. 0 minus 3 gives me minus 3. Then I have to do negative 2 times the absolute value of 0 minus 1 minus 3. So 0 minus 1 is negative 1, but it's in the absolute value, so we change it to a positive 1, right? Absolute values make that number positive. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 minus 3, negative 5. Then I have negative 2 times the absolute value of negative 1 minus 1 minus 3. So negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2, but it's in the absolute values, so we make it positive. 2 times negative 2 is minus 4, and a negative 4 minus a 3 minus a 7. So that these two answers match up, these two answers match up, and the other one's in the middle. So 3, negative 7. 2, negative 5. 1, negative 3. 0, negative 5. And negative 1, negative 7. So your dots should look like they're in a V shape. You're again going to have to draw the two lines. So from the vertex through one endpoint, and then from the vertex through the other endpoint, so you have that V shape. Just to note, it doesn't like it if you stop right on the endpoint. Make sure you draw it through that endpoint to show that it does keep going. It doesn't stop right on the end. Otherwise, it gets to be a little picky on Alex sometimes. And the last one on chapter 2. So, again, since we have a shift to this graph, we have to figure out what our middle value should be for x. What should our middle x value be? Negative 3. If I have a negative 3 in here, that makes this 0. That's what you're trying to do, is make that absolute value 0. So 2 points on each side of that. If I go up from negative 3, I would have negative 2 and negative 1. If I go down from negative 3, negative 4 and negative 5, right? So 3 times the absolute value of negative 1 plus 3 plus 4. What do you get for your answer when you solve that? You get 10. This is going to be 2. 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 plus 4 is 10. So then I'm going to do 3 times the absolute value of negative 2 plus 3 plus 4. If I solve that one, I get 7. This is going to be 1. 1 times 3 is 3, and 3 plus 4 is 7. So then I do 3 times the absolute value of negative 3 plus 3 plus 4. And I get
4.
the 4, because this is going to be 0. So I just get the 4 on the end. Then I do 3 times the absolute value of negative 4 plus 3 plus 4.
7.
And I'm going to get 7. And then I do the last one, 3 times the absolute value of negative 5 plus 3 plus 4. And I'm going to get 10. So I can pop my points. Negative 1, positive 10, way up there. Negative 2, positive 7. Negative 3, positive 4. Negative 4, positive 7. And negative 5, positive 10. And then I'm going to draw my 2 lines from the vertex through each of those 2 endpoints, so that when I'm done, it looks like a V. Alrighty, so if you look at the front of your